Man helps a crying tiger, and you won't believe how he thanks his savior. As a predator tiger plays an important role in maintaining the harmony of the ecosystem, it is one of the world's largest cats. Tigers and humans don't get on very well, but there are some rare cases in which the tiger thanks his savior. In the mountain village, Atwood lived alone. He was poor, and there was no other family members. He worked as a forest ranger, planted a few fields, and went into the mountains every 2 days. The ranger's job wasn't all that difficult for Atwood, who grew up in the mountains. Atwood was touring the mountains early one winter morning, walking through the snow. Atwood noticed a few faint whines. When he paused to listen carefully, the sound came from a patch of grass, a head projected from a dry snow-covered weed. Atwood searched through the weeds and noticed that the little tiger cub was covered in bite marks. There was also a broken bone. Atwood couldn't bear leaving the little tiger cub alone after witnessing it, so he slowly picked it up and walked down the mountain. When he got home, he found some clothes and threw them on the ground, where he placed the little tiger cub. He applied medicinal herbs to the cub's injured area after grinding. Because the cub's leg bone had been exposed, it needed to be restrained, so he went to the door to get a few wooden sticks to help this little tiger cub's leg. Atwood had no idea what to feed the little tiger cub. Atwood remembered that the family dog had just given birth the day before. He went to the kitchen to get a bowl and then went to the dog and requested milk. Then he placed the milk in the mouth of the tiger cub. After a while, the little tiger cub lowered its head, stuck out its tongue, licked slowly, and finished drinking. Atwood was happy because the tiger cub was willing to eat. The tiger cub lived on the dog's milk. The little tiger cub's injuries healed almost completely over time. The man named the little tiger cub Gore. The little tiger cub had grown into a fully grown tiger after more than a year and would often follow Atwood when he was climbing the mountain. Atwood kept Gore by his side as time passed. Gore ran around the woods looking nothing like a tiger. It was like a huge kitten playing around. So Atwood decided it was time to return it to nature. Atwood led Gore into the woods where he knelt and stroked its head. He hoped Gore understood what he was saying. Gore seemed to know it. Atwood treated Gore differently that day. They were about to part ways, so Atwood turned to go down the mountain. But Gore stayed close behind him and wouldn't leave until he got really angry. Gore had never seen Atwood become enraged. It may have been scared and ran to the mountain in despair because it did not dare to follow. Atwood then continued to patrol the mountain. Atwood passed out on the mountain one day after fainting. Atwood was seen by Bonnie, who went up the mountain, and Bonnie shouted Atwood's name. After a while, Atwood woke up, and Bonnie assisted him. Bonnie's family was also poor, so she dropped out of school. She could only make a living by working in the family's fields and cutting firewood in the mountains. She spent nearly half of her childhood there. Later, the two decided to get married, but Bonnie's family didn't accept it at first. After 2 years of convincing them, they finally got married, and Atwood and Bonnie had a happy life. They had a lovely daughter. She always accompanied Atwood up the mountains. One day, when Atwood was patrolling the mountain, he passed out suddenly. When Bonnie saw him, she hurried up the mountain and went to the hospital. After examination, the doctor concluded that Atwood's left kidney was gradually shrinking, and his right kidney was becoming neurotic. Because of the high surgery cost, Atwood chose to give up directly. 3 years later, Atwood's condition worsened again. Atwood's left kidney was severely atrophied, as was his right kidney. But he said he felt better and had less pain when he went for a walk in the woods. It was the summer, and the sun was scorching on the ground. It was also the season for forest fires. When Atwood noticed a few wisps of smoke rising from the mountains not far away, he knew something was wrong. The fire quickly spread. Atwood didn't have time to react, and the wind spread the fire to him. Atwood carelessly ran down the hill, stumbling and falling. A tiger appeared in front of him. He didn't want to be devoured by this beast or burned to ashes. Atwood closed his eyes and decided to accept fate because he believed his physical condition would not last long. At the time, the tiger appeared anxious and walked in front of him, grabbing his clothes and occasionally dragging him, which surprised Atwood because the tiger didn't stop dragging due to Atwood's shock. Atwood felt hopeful. He jumped to his feet and dashed down the mountain in the direction the tiger was dragging him. After that, a tree trunk suddenly fell from above. Atwood was struck by the burning tree trunk and didn't rush to dodge. After the tiger put out the flames on its body, there were obvious burn marks. It took a stick from not far away and handed it to Atwood. After Atwood took the stick, he pulled the trunk away from him. He had no time to think about it. He could only endure the pain and continued to run down the mountain. Atwood had been led by the tiger, who was always on guard. Atwood arrived safely home, escorted by the tiger. After sending him down the mountain, the tiger rubbed his body a few times, and Atwood noticed the long scar on the tiger's leg. When this little tiger cub was injured, the scar remained even though its legs had healed. Atwood asked the tiger if it was gore and waited for a response, but the tiger stepped forward, shook the dust off its body, let out a long whistle, and walked toward the mountain. Atwood was desperate for it not to return because the fire on the mountain was out of control and dangerous, but the tiger vanished into the fire as if not hearing it. When Atwood returned home, Bonnie was shocked to see him in that state. Atwood said, "I rescued a dying little tiger cub while patrolling the mountain. I didn't know you at the time. I kept it by my side, and later I was able to escape successfully, this time entirely because I didn't do anything major. But a tiger rescued me." This dumbfounded Atwood. In another case, the grandfather stayed with his grandson while the parents were away working. The man planned to climb the mountain to gather firewood one day during a harsh winter. He asked his grandson to wait for him at home because it was too chilly outside, but the boy insisted on going with him. While his grandson was picking up something, the man began collecting firewood. The grandfather turned around after gathering the firewood to see his grandson clutching something in his arms. "Grandpa, I found a kitten. Since it's freezing here, let's take it back," his grandson said. The grandfather consented to let the cat stay at his house. When they arrived, the grandfather told the grandson to put the kitten down since he had some goat milk. The grandfather then carefully observed the kitten and noticed that it looked like a tiger. Xiaohu, the child named the kitten. Seeing the tiger approach the child with tenderness moved the grandfather. When his grandson lost interest in it, he intended to take care of the tiger cub and release it back into the forest. The parents were astonished to find the tiger cub when they arrived at the house. The grandfather gave the pair an explanation of everything. The parents then convinced the child to allow the tiger cub to return to the forest. Shuahu stared at the family before parting with them. The boy fled the forest 3 years later due to his parents' arguments. While looking for him, they heard a roar. They moved in the direction of the sound source. They observed a boy perched against a tree and a tiger there. The boy told his grandpa that Shuahu had saved him when his parents and grandpa stood in front of them as if seeing an enemy. A dead boar was then discovered next to them. After Shuahu noticed the family's reunion, the tiger turned around in response to the boy's call from behind and decided to drag the boar away. The child hugged Shuahu and thanked him, and then released him. Afterward, Shuahu slowly walked away into the wilderness. That's all we've got for today. That's all we got today, guys. Also, don't forget to thumbs up the video and subscribe for more entertaining content. And we'll see you again